Okay, so like I pointed out earlier, I work with Adult Probation and Parole up in Logan, Utah. And we were trying to figure out how to use the theory of constraints to deal with some challenges we were facing. And I think that the term vicious cycle describes our role really well. If we don't do our job effectively, we've all heard that revolving door of the criminal justice system. If we don't do our job effectively, that means people that are involved in criminal behavior are going to commit more crimes, they're going to have more victims, they're going to spend very expensive time for all of us incarcerated, and then there's also the loss of human capital. If those people don't change, they're not going to be members of our society that are benefiting our society and helping. So that kind of gives us what the constraint is. This first topic I discussed, revolving door of the criminal justice system. What is the best way to change behavior? That's what we had to ask ourselves. We want people to change, we want them to stop committing crimes. How do we get them to change their behavior? Some of them want to change, but not all of them will at least admit that they want to change. And there's some different research groups around the country that have been studying criminal justice fields for a long time. One of the epicenters comes from the University of Cincinnati. And they've done a lot of research, and so I've been reading a lot of their research and studies to see what they suggest. And one of the best ways to get people to change behavior is to try to harness their own energy, their own desire to change. We spend a lot of time telling them, you need to change because what you did is illegal, or you need to change because we're not going to tolerate that. We're going to throw you in jail to keep this behavior up. But that approach doesn't always get them energized and ready to change their behavior. What we found, or what I found from reading from these different reports, is that people have a desire to change oftentimes after they've been caught in their crime, they've gone through the humiliation of going through the court process, of ending up in either jail or prison and being incarcerated, and while they're sitting there getting ready to be released, they're thinking, you know, I never want to go through this again. I don't ever want to go back to using drugs. Or I don't ever want to go back to stealing because I don't want to go to the court system again. I don't want to go in jail or prison. And they have this energy and this drive. And then they get released. And because we're in the field, we have heavy caseloads, we all too often found ourselves taking a couple weeks to meet with the client after they got out of jail or prison. And oftentimes it would take us a month, and that's probably pretty fast, maybe 2 or 3 months before they were really engaged in treatment. And I looked at some notes from the Pew where they were saying that these individuals are most motivated to change in the first few weeks, first few months for sure, but oftentimes even weeks and even days that they get out of jail. If time goes by, they start hanging out with their old friends again, they start getting comfortable in the community, going back to jail seems like a more distant memory, and their motivation has declined. So we asked ourselves, how do we change from our current system, our current constraint, where we have large caseloads, dealing with people that have not had a lot of success in their past, they're not used to being successful, and convincing them they can change, and how do we do it? How do we change that? What we decided we need to do was front load supervision. At the time that they're most motivated to change is when they get out of jail and prison, and that's when we can harness their own desire to change their behaviors, then that's when we need to be most involved in their life. So we went through and looked at the current resources that we had. We had a lot of help with building this pilot project because many of you might have heard about the Justice Reinvestment Initiative that was passed in Utah. It gave us some additional funding for treatment. We had some new staff members. We were able to increase our work capacity a little bit, but not a lot. So we still had to look within it what we could do. And we found ways to speed up the intake process. We meet with the probationers, and this is happening in the prisons as well, meeting with the parolees before they get out of jail. When they're getting ready to get out, they're wondering what life's going to be like, what's expected for them. We're going down and preparing them for that. Out of jail, the very first time they come into our office, we're building a case plan with them. It's describing what we expect them to change and how they're going to change it. We're getting them enrolled in therapy that same day. So that very first week they're coming to classes. We were able to get them to have a substance abuse evaluation within 5 business days of getting out of jail. And this took a lot of using TOC methods to look at capacity, finding hidden capacity, increasing how proficient we could be, because that's a big challenge. Substance abuse treatment programs generally have long queues and wait lists, and you just don't get enrolled in treatment. We're getting folks involved, they're getting their assessment done and treatment started within 5 days. It's also increasing their contact with their probation officer and therapist during their initial start of probation. We're talking about their first 90 days up to 120 days of supervision. The idea here was that if they had more contact, more involvement with their probation officer, we're building trust faster. It's not going to take the months it would take if we're meeting with them less frequently and being less involved in their life. We had to ask ourselves, if we're going to change them, and this is the constraint, then what do we go to? We're from Delta Airlines. For those of you that were here last week, you heard the story about how Delta was having problems with ensuring that they were keeping planes in the air and that they were not getting backlogged with maintenance and routine cleanings. And they came up with their full kit system, where instead of fixing just what absolutely had to be repaired on all the planes at once and getting back in the air, they would take very few planes and do a full kit, full cleaning. And we said, what does a full kit look like for somebody that's coming out on probation and parole? You know, we want to ensure that they're going to be able to change their behavior and how to have all the tools necessary. So like we said, they're coming into our office, they're meeting with their probation officer at least 2 times a month, oftentimes 3, but they're in our office 2 to 3 times a week with the different classes. We used to get them enrolled in 1 class at a time. If they were a drug addict, we maybe would prioritize substance abuse treatment. If they weren't working, get them an employment class. With this program, we're getting them enrolled in programs that change their cognitive thinking, programs that target substance abuse, and programs that target employment, and doing it all at once. The idea here is they're just getting out of jail, they're probably still unemployed, they're not back up to full speed of life. This is your best time to just have everything with them at once and then give them a light at the end of the tunnel. So if they enter into all these programs and make progress, we're going to work them through it. And so it gives, this is the light here, that as they progress and they lower their risk score, we're going to different things we're doing. Now the risk score, we have an assessment tool that kind of measures how likelihood somebody is to recidivate. Usually we're done with people either at high, moderate, or low risk. So not only did we want to make sure that we're using classes and getting them involved and dealing with different aspects of their life, but we wanted to make sure that the programs we're using are going to be effective. And so you can see here, this is University of Cincinnati came up with criminogenic needs. And they have 8 of them, but the top 4 is what I've listed here. The top 4 is the most important. The top 4 is what they describe as their criminogenic driving factors. This is what drives criminal behavior. These are the classes, these are the things that we're targeting. As you can see here, these are all very challenging areas. For the top one here, criminal history, we really can't make that better. So there's not a lot to focus on with classes, but the things that drive their criminal behavior, I was surprised to see it's not substance abuse addictions. It's not employment. It's not social concerns. When I first started as a probation officer, I felt like when somebody came into my office and they had a drug addiction, they need to get into drug therapy right away. This is why they're committing crimes or addicted to drugs. Surprisingly enough, that's not usually the driver. An example of this would be somebody that has a drug addiction. It may be that they know how to quit. You know, we often found ourselves looking at our clients that have gone through substance abuse therapy 3, 4, 5 times. Heck, a lot of them could teach a substance abuse class, yet they still use drugs. Why? Well, we were targeting tools to stop using drugs when really we needed to address what their attitude was. They had an antisocial attitude. They didn't see a reason to quit using drugs. Or they didn't believe they were the kind of person who could stop using drugs and become a pro-social, productive member of society. They didn't believe in themselves. Antisocial behaviors might be more of how they deal with stress. When they get angry, do they need to act out violence, or do they need to, go hide under a substance, or what is it that they do? And this one is huge, is antisocial associates. Who are they associated with? What's their family like? Is their family positive? Do they encourage them? Or do they come from a family that has a long history of committing crimes? So this is why the full kit was so important and why we built this process to target them early on. These areas are extremely hard to change. It's easy to put somebody through substance abuse therapy. How do we change their attitude? We change their attitude by getting them in the right classes that target cognitive restructuring, help them to learn why and see why their criminal behavior impacts people they care about. We help them discover ways to what motivates them and what they want to achieve, and encourage them with incentives along the way. In our project, we're using a lot of incentives, not just punitive measures. I mean, if somebody breaks the law, we have to take some punitive action. Sometimes we have to arrest them. But if we ignore the progress they made, even if they're going to jail, we can point out that maybe this is the first time they've gone 2 months without using drugs. So there's just a lot of different things that we've done. We're still in the middle of this project. We're finding more ways that people that are in probation or parole line up with the theory of constraints and new tools to use. An example is the change cloud matrix. And for any of you that have seen that change company, what do you usually call it?
Change matrix.
Change matrix cloud. That's what Alan calls it. Usually called conflict cloud. Yeah, conflict cloud, or the change matrix cloud, we call a lot, where you sit down with people and help them identify what reasons they want to change and why they don't. Finding out a lot of offenders have the same drivers that make them want to change. A lot of them have family members they care about, a significant other they don't want to let down. A lot of them have the same fear of trying to succeed, believing that they can't make it, believing that everybody in society is going to continue to look at them as a felon or a criminal and not accept that they can change. So we're finding new ways to implement it, but it's really helped us speed through this process and be more effective. You guys have some questions? This might be a lot different in a lot of the fields we've been working in.
Can you tell us more about what you did to free up the time immediately after, or maybe just right before their release?
To make sure that we had the capacity to be disinvolved with them. What we're doing is identifying where the need's at, so we recognize that they have a need on the front end. As people lower their risk score, the research indicates that they need less contact with their probation officer. Somebody who gets down to a low risk score means that they have a lot of pro-social contacts established now. It means that it's going to mean that they're working full time, that they have hopefully have established good ties with family, for those that do have good family. For those that don't, good other contacts. So we're not seeing them like we were before. We're not going to their house every single month because they've progressed. And maybe it's not wise to use state dollars to continue to watch them to that level because they've moved on. And oftentimes we find that when we go to their house or we go to their job when they're at low risk, we're doing more harm than good. They don't want to see they're making progress, they're making good choices. They shouldn't have the police show up at their house for no reason. So that's one thing that we did. Like I said, because the Justice Reinvestment Initiative passed, we got a couple new staff members. That helped immensely, obviously. We also are just trying to shift people that come into the criminal justice system at low risk, and that does happen. Most of them come into the system at moderate or high, but some come in at low. We put a lot of effort into asking our judges to say, hey, this person, and I realize they might have committed driving while under the influence, or they might have been caught with some drugs in their pocket. We're not okay with that behavior, but maybe they don't need the same level of recourse that somebody who's at moderate or high risk that we know is going to recidivate. We're asking our judges to recognize that, place them on private probation, or court probation, where we're not monitored as closely, so that we can focus the more intensive resources for where we get the best results.
What are your results?
We're still measuring it. We really don't have statistics back yet. We've held some meetings where we've actually brought in our clients and talked with them, relying mostly on their feedback. But when you're bringing in parolees or probationers, and you can imagine, you're not expecting positive feedback. You're expecting to say, you guys are in my life, I want my freedom back, leave me alone. And that's not what they're telling us. In fact, just today, Greg was up at our office and we met with a client who said, I have really appreciated the boundaries and the structures that I've had while on probation. He went on to say how much his probation officers helped him. Told us that he drinks alcohol. He's going to go to jail and he knows it, but he's going to call his probation officer and tell him. And whether he'll actually do that or not is yet to be seen, but that's what he said. And that's, his probation officer wasn't in the room, so he's not benefiting by just saying this stuff. And I don't know how many clients we've met with. We've even met with some who aren't doing well, who aren't performing. And there's definitely a perception from our clients that they believe that we are there to help them. We changed our way of doing business. That was not often the perspective. It was usually, we're here to arrest them, we're here to get them in trouble. So many of them are telling us, we're here to help you. And from their perspective is that they really appreciate it. They have their complaints. We're asking a lot from them when they first get out of jail. We're tying up 15, 20 hours a week of their time, which for those of us that have worked and gone to school gone to school full-time, worked full-time, doesn't sound like a lot. But for people who've never had a full-time job before, in many cases, 15 to 20 hour a week commitment's a lot. And so they point out that they feel like they're really busy, but then they've often just talked about how much they've appreciated the programs they've been in, how they've helped them, how they've gotten more out of probation this time than they ever have before. So I'm very confident that when we do have done this long enough to get statistics, we're going to see good results.
What are your measures then?
So what we're measuring is quality terminations. So the risk score I talked about earlier, the level of service risk need responsibility tool measures if they're a high, moderate, or low risk to recidivate. It's been studied. It's a tool that's been in use with correctional agencies around the country for, gosh, Carl, do you know how many years that's been in? It's over 20 years. It's been validated. It's a statistically valid tool. And according to the research into that tool, if somebody brings their risk score down by 15%, it correlates to a 33% reduction in likelihood that they will recidivate. 33% less crime. So we're measuring that. They start our program at a certain score. We have an updated LSR&R score when they start. When they leave, we update it again. But mind you, this is just 3 or 4 months of time that we're updating the score. So it's really not long enough to give us a clear picture on how much it's dropped and if they're really stabilized. So then we're going to track it out to a year. And we're comparing Logan to a similar sized community with similar demographics, St. George, Washington County, very similar in size to Cache County, similar demographics. So they're going to be our control group. And we're going to see that people going through this pilot project, if we're having a better success at lowering their risk score and keeping them from recidivating than those that don't have such a program.
What we've seen so far is that those that buy in and go to class, those get huge decreases in their score. 21%, 30%, 40%. 9 out of 10. Just that one.
Yeah.
The risk score goes up.
There are people that, yeah, the risk score goes up, or we don't have the impact, but that's going to happen. We're dealing with we're dealing with people that, like, a lot of them don't want to change. And having 20, 30, 40% reductions, if that lasts, if what we're seeing so far ends up being valid, I mean, it's going to be huge. That's huge reductions in risk score in a short amount of time, which equates for all of us. I mean, any of us that have family members that have struggled with addictions or criminal behavior, I mean, you can just imagine the human capital of seeing somebody change. But then there's also, they're not going to go spend a lot of time in expensive prison or jail. We all don't want to see our tax dollars paid for. And they're not going to be breaking into a house or stealing. It's just the benefits are hard to measure.
Okay, we are. Thank you.
Thank you
so much.
Yeah.